How do you know which Forex pairs to trade and when? Let's talk about that and more right now. Hey Forex traders, Andrew Mitchem here, the owner of the Forex Trading Coach with video and podcast number 388. Now I've got two things to talk about. The first I want to talk about how I can help you to know which Forex pairs to trade. And secondly, at the end of the video, I'm going to explain about next week's video and podcast when I'm going to be interviewing Ben Clay from Blueberry Markets. And I want to know from you, what's your number one question you'd like me to ask Blueberry Markets to Forex brokers? So we'll talk about that at the end. So back to the first point. How do you know which Forex pairs to trade? Now, it's a problem that a lot of people come to me and they say, hey Andrew, look, I just don't know what to trade. There's a lot of currency pairs out there. Which ones should I look at? And as Forex traders, we're quite a fortunate position when you think about it, in that we really only have 8 main currencies to look at and the combinations of each. Now, of course, there's extra currencies like Norwegian kroner and Swedish kroner and South African rand and all those, but there's really the main 8. Unlike most other markets out there where there could be hundreds or even thousands of different stocks and shares and companies to look at. So we do have an advantage, but it's still confusing for a lot of people. Now, another thing is, a number of people also suggest that you should just look at the main currency pairs, the majors. And that would be like the pound US, the euro US, US yen, US franc, Aussie US, Kiwi US, US Canadian. And you start to see the problem there. It's that they all have the US dollar in them. Now, let's say the US dollar happens to be quite flat. Then there may not be many opportunities there. And that becomes the issue. Or the US dollar is very strong and very weak, and they all move together. And then things suddenly change around and they all come and stop you out. That becomes the problem when you trade just the majors. So what I like to do is this is my routine. At the beginning of each week, I scan the weekly charts on all the currency pairs, or the main currency pairs. There's about 28 of them. And by setting up my weekly charts as a profile on my MetaTrader platform, it's very easy to get all the euro pairs, all the pound pairs, all the Aussie pairs, all the Kiwi pairs, and just scan through and see what's happening on the weekly charts. There will be some trades there most weeks, but even if there are no trades or very few trades off the weekly charts themselves, what they do is they give me an overall bias as this currency pair's a little bit indecisive, or this one's strongly bullish, or this one's very bearish, and is that likely to continue for the upcoming week, yes or no? And it allows me to basically to plan that bigger picture. And then at the beginning of each new day, I then do exactly the same process, but on a profile where I have just the daily charts. And quite often there will be trades there, specific trades based off the daily charts, but also I get my bias for that day, my strength and weakness analysis of where I see currency pairs. Again, some may not be moving much, and so I just try to avoid those pairs that day. Some might be very strongly bullish or very strongly bearish. So that then helps me when I scale down to the shorter time frame charts, and even like the 12 hours, the 8, the 6, the 4, and occasionally the 1 hour charts. So I don't need to have everything lined up together. It does help if I can have, let's say, a trade on the 4 hour charts that's a buy trade. And let's say that we have on the same currency pair, the weekly and the daily, also showing good, strong, bullish tendencies. Then if I see that buy trade on the 4 hour chart, then providing, of course, the candle is in the right part of the chart and I get the setup that I'm looking for, and I've got something to protect my stop loss, I've got a good reason why my profit target is going to get hit and not bounce before we get there, then of course that trade has more probability. But I'm still coming back to the currency pair that I decide to trade. Depends on the time frame chart that I'm looking at, but more importantly, it looks at the setup. I have to have the candle pattern setup correct on that chart, regardless of what the currency pair is or what the time frame chart is. I have to have that setup correct first. And if I have that right, that then determines which currency I trade. Now, I don't trade just the New Zealand dollar because I happen to live here. it doesn't matter to me which of those currencies I trade. And quite frankly, it doesn't matter which direction, providing I have the technical setup. And that's what's important. And that's how you can help yourself determine which currency pairs to trade and to know which to trade. Now, of course, in my 5-star rated coaching course, we cover all of that of how to do that. And the great thing about following our membership site is every single day we do that exact process and we write down what we're looking at and why. We do that at the beginning of each week for the weekly charts and the beginning of every month for the monthly charts. So it's all real-time information that can help you to train your eye to see what we see. So I hope that bit helps. Now, moving on to part 2 quickly. This time next week, I'll be sharing with you an interview that I'm going to be doing next week. Next Wednesday with Ben Clay, who's head of marketing at Blueberry Markets over in Australia. Now, Blueberry Markets can accept currency traders from many countries around the world. I've been personally with them. I have my own live accounts with them and have done for many years. But what I want to do is interview Ben with maybe the top 7 or 8 questions that you ask me. I don't want to just ask my own questions. I want to know from you what is the most important thing you want to know from a broker. So if you could interview a broker yourself, what's the first thing you would ask them? Let me know what that is. Reply to me or when you see this video or podcast, or to email me, andrew@theforextradingcoach.com. Do that before Wednesday of next week. And when I interview Ben, I'd love to ask your question to him on your behalf. So I hope that helps. This is Andrew Mitchem here at the Forex Trading Coach. I see you this time next week when you'll be watching the podcast with Ben from Blueberry Markets. Bye for now.